the long-term goal
Mm-hmm.
is a world of net zero trauma.
Mm.
There's always going to be trauma. There's always going to be heartache. People are always going to die of this and that. There'll always be some conflicts. But we'd like to have net zero trauma, like some stable level, not increasing. What we have now,
Right.
and what we're going to have probably for the next 20, 30 years is going to be increasing trauma from climate change, from
Sure, everything we're going
economic
through.
stuff.
Yeah, culture wars.
Right.
Everything.
So what we need is to really develop a metric of the global burden of trauma, and then try to see if we can reduce it by 2070.
Are you working on this metric?
Bhutan has a metric for happiness, and they rank other countries on global happiness measures. So if we do this net zero trauma goal, we would do a lot of work in prisons, a lot of work with refugees. There's some predictions are over 1 billion climate refugees by 2050.
Mm.
So there's got to be this massive global therapeutic process, and it cannot be only in the Western model, because there's not enough therapists, there's not enough psychiatrists. We're going to have to find indigenous healers, different ways to. So that's where we would learn from. Over generations or two, you try to really shift humanity in more of this mass mental health and spiritualized humanity direction. And we need to recognize, though, that it will be getting more stressful, I think, over the next couple of decades.
So this metric, that sounds like such a heavy task to create a metric.
Yeah.
Well,
how do you measure
trauma?
How do you measure happiness? You have to think about it. So there's PTSD. So
Mm-hmm.
there's estimates of the number of people with PTSD.
Okay.
But there's a lot of that's like when it gets to be really extreme, it becomes PTSD. But there's loads of trauma below that people cope with. So how do you measure all of that? Gender violence. I think you have to be police harassment,
abuse.
I think that there is that's we're measuring pollution. How do we measure? It's another way to say trauma.
Okay.
It will take population surveys. It's going to be to do it in every country. Yeah, you have to. How do you know that you can get crime records? How many rapes and murders, or I was just in Mexico City at the Institute for Psychiatry. And they want to start psychedelic research in Mexico. They're the Mexican government, like equivalent of the National Institute of Mental Health. They haven't had psychedelic research for 50 years in Mexico, but they have enormous amounts of PTSD. And they have all the cartel violence and gender violence and just poverty and refugees coming through, migrants, and so I think there's ways to measure it. So I think one part of what we would do is be having this team that's the measurers. Then hopefully the way bigger team is the therapists.
Yeah,
we're trying to tip the scales.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come up with a name for that too. A name for the unit of trauma. How much? Like how many SADs per country? We can't go over 5 million SADs per year, and then we can create an acronym with SAD. Just SAD. Sorry, sodden and desperate. Could be the acronym.
Substance abuse, depression.
Yeah. How do we bring these SADs down to a net zero? That's incredible, man.
That's but I think you're right. There will be some acronym,
there's
some
gotta
units.
Be some, because pollution is like some amount and everything else.
Parts per billion.
Right, exactly. How many SADs per billion do we have? How many cries per trillion?
How many laughs per day?
How many laughs per day? I need at least 100. Otherwise, I start to weigh down on the trauma scale. Rick, there's so much that we could talk about.
There is one more thing I'd like to talk about.
Please, and then I have rapid fire questions to end it.
So this is that it does seem like there's hundreds of for-profit psychedelic companies. I just read today over $3 billion has been put into psychedelics.
$3 billion.
$3 billion. There's all sorts of, there's 5 times more research now than in the 60s.
Wow.
With psychedelics. And we've just finished our second phase 3 study, and if we do get approval, it's in early 2024. It's like the doorway to a new world.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for checking out this clip from the Good Trip podcast, brought to you by Doc Parsley's Sleep Remedy. I have integrated this into my nighttime routine and can tell you I've already seen the benefits because I wake up feeling rejuvenated, refreshed, and energized for my day. And you can too by checking out docparsley.com/Brent to get a discount on my favorite sleep supplement, which is made with magnesium, L-tryptophan, 5-HTP, and a couple other awesome ingredients to help you optimize your sleep so you can wake up and have an amazing day.